Let's pick up our study of Luke's account of the Olivet Discourse. Remember now, we've got these two questions about when's the destruction of the temple going to happen and what are going to be the signs of those things happening. Verse 20, but when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then recognize that her desolation is near. Now, he uses the term desolation, but this is not the abomination of desolation, so don't be confused. Then those who are in Judea must flee to the mountains, and those who are in the midst of the city must leave, and those who are in the country must not enter the city, because these are days of vengeance, so that all things which are written will be fulfilled. Remember, part of the whole prophecy is that the temple was going to be destroyed. That's what is being written about. Woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days, for there will be great distress upon the land and wrath to this people, and they will fall by the edge of the sword and will be led captive into all the nations, and Jerusalem will be trampled underfoot by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. That's the prophecy about the destruction of the temple in AD 70. They fell by the edge of the sword. They were led captives. The diaspora came out as a result. Jerusalem's been trampled underfoot by Gentiles ever since, until it was reestablished as a nation in 1948, until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. So the time of the Gentile reign over Jerusalem has largely come to an end, although we still see the Jordanian Waqf having control over the Temple Mount. There's still the whole issue about East Jerusalem and the Palestinian state and all that's still going on. But that's what we're talking about, is in Jerusalem when it was surrounded by the armies in AD 70. That's what this prophecy is all about. Not about future events, not about, well, it was future to the disciples, but it's in our past. Not talking about the abomination of desolation. That's yet to come. This was about the destruction of the temple when Jesus said not one stone will be left upon another. That's what the disciples were interested in. So he's answering their questions about the temple. No mention of the Great Tribulation either. So the abomination of desolation is not mentioned. The Great Tribulation is not mentioned. The instructions to flee from Judea are not triggered by the abomination of desolation like they were in Matthew 24. They're triggered by Jerusalem being surrounded by armies. There's a whole different trigger here. It's two different events. There are two times in history that the believers have been instructed to flee Judea. This one that happened in AD 70 when Titus conquered Jerusalem and laid siege to it and leveled the temple. Eusebius, who was the first great church historian, he actually reported on this event. This is what he said. He says that when Titus attacked Jerusalem, the church at Jerusalem, the believers, largely they're going to be believing Jews, left the city and moved to a town called Pella. So that's interesting. The Judean Christians heeded Jesus' warning. They saw the armies, they saw the Roman armies surrounding Jerusalem. They left. They got the heck out of town, right? They ran for the hills, literally, and were largely spared from the terrible slaughter that took place under Titus in the aftermath of all that. Now, Luke is going to finish up his account of this Olivet Discourse with Jesus' prophecy regarding his return. That was all part of the same conversation. So it makes it kind of confusing. It's because we've got to realize this is one big conversation, and Matthew's giving us pieces of it, Luke's giving us pieces of it, and we want to be sure we understand which piece is to which account. So let's look at starting in verse 25. There will be signs in sun and moon and stars, and on the earth dismay among nations, in perplexity at the roaring of the sea and the waves, men fainting from fear and the expectation of the things which are coming upon the world, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. But when these things begin to take place, straighten up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. So now Luke transitions into these prophecies regarding the end times, Jesus' second coming. This is a bifurcated prophecy. The first part's dealing with 70 AD with Titus. The second part's dealing with Jesus at his second coming. And if you're not sensitive to that, you'll miss the point that these are two different events that are being described here in the Olivet Discourse and Luke's account. And don't be confused. This is what leads a lot of people to take the preterist view. They'll take the view that, well, that happened back in 70 AD. So it's not even not in our future, and they're not understanding that Matthew is giving a snippet of that conversation, and Luke's giving a snippet of that conversation. And when it comes to fleeing Judea, they're not talking about the same event. They're talking about two different events. Don't be confused. Don't be misled. That's why we're taking our time to go through this study in great detail.